So my name is Gayle Gratop, and I have been growing plants here in northern Arizona since 2009. My role here in Extension is mostly under the Master Gardener program, and I created the first online version of the class in the state.
Okay.
This is before the pandemic happened.
That's very convenient.
Yeah, and that was my capstone project. I got my master's in ag ed from U of A.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was my capstone project, and then the pandemic hit during the probably 2 months after we got started with the first cohort. So we were like, what?
That works.
Well, this is all right. We're not really affected as far as this class is concerned. And before that, I worked for the Forest Service here on the Coconino, and I did a lot of killing plants. So removing invasive species, yeah, and I decided that I wanted to go a little different direction, so I joined AmeriCorps, and they placed me at the Arboretum. So that's how I learned how to grow plants, native plants.
Cool.
But then I also had formal training. I went through and I worked in a lot of other places like Grand Canyon, of course, and I do at the nursery there, and I do my own business here.
Right.
But after many years of informal training, I decided that I wanted to really understand the science behind everything. So I went to Yavapai College, and I went through their production horticulture program. The professor, Justin Brereton, who's like a mentor of mine, he made a point of not really doing lecture.
Uh-huh.
I mean, we would gather and talk in the classroom for a little bit, and then it was just 3 hours in the greenhouse.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it was definitely hands-on, which was helpful.
Right.
Yeah.
How much of what you do is running your plant business, and how much of it is like working for the extension office at this point?
So mostly, I'm full-time at Cooperative Extension.
Okay.
And my nursery business is just a labor of love.
Right.
So in the summertime, the reason why I started it is because I was only part-time here.
Right.
And I really missed touching plants. I do get to garden a lot here, but in my role at Extension, but I really miss the production side of things because I love it. So I bought a little season extender greenhouse, which it really is. I mean, I have no climate control or anything, but I just work with the seasons, and I only do that from like May until probably November, when I'm putting things to bed.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like up here in this climate, it's kind of rough to try and like push the seasons too much.
Absolutely.
Right.
Because I have moved 50, 10, 20 trays into my garage because I know what's coming.
Right.
A frost or something that would nip my little seedlings that aren't ready yet. So yeah, it's a lot of work.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair. I feel like anybody who's getting into gardening generally, but like plant production, you don't realize how much like physical labor is involved until you get doing it.
It is, yeah, and don't plan on going anywhere, right? They're living things, so if you want to go take a weekend trip in June, you better have a backup plan because you can't let your plants go without water when it's so dry and hot, and especially if you're growing, if your plants are only in little cell trays, those things dry out so quickly. So sometimes you have to water those twice a day.
Right. I remember talking with people about that, like friends of mine who are like, oh yeah, I'm working on my landscaping and I wanted to grow like a few things, and the amount of labor that goes into just growing. Like, I think it's easier to grow a whole greenhouse worth of things than it is to grow like a single tray in your windowsill, because it's like, if you're making it a regular job where you're checking on them 2 times a day, every day, versus having something that like you might forget about for like a day, and then like 3 months worth of work is like dead in your windowsill.
Absolutely.
Right. Like that makes it really difficult, I think. So yeah, it definitely seems easier to really focus on like larger production in a way.
Yeah, those little windowsill pots could be out of sight, out of mind, right?
Right, a little too much. Yeah, and it is like you have to be super attentive on a super regular basis.
You do, absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, your plants are beautiful.
Thank you.
I've got a few of them, and they do very well in my yard. So
I love hearing that. That's why I do it.
Right. Yeah. No, that's my favorite thing too. Like somebody coming and talking to me and being like, "Oh yeah, I remember that thing that I bought last year. Like it's twice as big now," and it's like, well, that's great. great.
Yeah.
Because I do kind of expect that maybe 50% of what I sell actually makes it, just because of our climate, but I don't know if that's me just being pessimistic.
Maybe. I mean, I always like getting feedback from people who bought plants from me because it does, it helps me know how successful I am as a grower. And a lot, I get people who come up to me and say, wow, you're really good at growing native plants. How'd you get so good? And my answer is always, well, I've killed a lot. I've made a lot of mistakes over the years. So,
I feel like that's the same thing that I hear from everybody. Like I was talking to the folks at Refugee Gardens, and I was talking to the Art Leeds, who has a farm over in Donny Park, and you just get talking about how like you ran into an issue that killed like everything that you were growing, or a pest that you weren't familiar with, and you feel like you're a total idiot, and you're like, I don't know if I'm good enough at this to keep doing it, but then you like learn and adjust and like improve.
Absolutely. Yes, I have made some big mistakes as a grower. And I look back and go, oh my gosh, I can't believe that you did that. Duh.
What were you thinking? Yeah, for sure. I feel like there's a lot of that. Like you just have to kind of persevere, and then it breaks your heart, and then you have to start over again. I think that's pretty common. But I did want to ask you about, so something that I've been talking with a lot of folks about is what they use as their soil mixes, and what they've had luck with, and what they've run into issues with.
I use Sunshine 4.
Okay.
Sunshine number 4 is very hard to get. I have to actually drive down to the Verde Valley to pick up my bales. Because they don't deliver up here, which is so funny. Sometimes Warners can get it in, and I'll ask them if they can find it and get it delivered up here. But last year I had to go down and buy it from Ace Hardware in Sedona. I had to order it online. I really like that mix. It's a very light mix. The natives respond really well to it. I don't put any additives in it, and that's the same as Denver Botanic Garden. I visited there a while ago, maybe like, I don't know, 10 years ago or so, and I asked their horticulturist what they used, and they grow a lot of natives too, and their climate is very similar to ours, and she was using Sunshine 4, and we were using it at the Arboretum, but we were putting a lot of other amendments in it, and they didn't. So I figured as a way to cut costs, then I would just try it without the straight, and it's fine. It's great. I like it. And then for starting seeds, I usually buy, oh man, I can't think of the brand right now, but it's a commercial mix. Also by Sungrow, I think. Seedling mix, their seedling mix.
For
black
like
gold.
Better drained sort of
it's
with no fertilizer in it.
Yeah, but it's sterile. It's super light, and the seeds respond really well to it. I'm small, and to me, it's worth it to spend that extra money because my plants do really well with that. Yeah, I know. We've been experimenting a little bit because I had a friend who his family ran Harper's Nursery down in Phoenix, and they were using like a soil mix that was native soil, compost, and sand mixed together. And I think a lot of it has to do with like where your components are coming from. But I just ran into like some things really liked it, and other things, they would get fungal infections as soon as I transplanted them, and so I'm kind of getting to the point where I'm willing to like stick with what works, even if it is, more expensive, just to like cut plant loss. Yeah, I agree, because you have to weigh that as a cost as well. Losing all plants. I've experimented with a lot of different media, and I have used a little bit, put maybe 10% native soil into my mixes, and I mean, there are pros and cons to it. Like you said, disease, I mean, that's the first thing that I think of. You could be introducing disease, and then it's really, really heavy. Too, so your pots, if you're doing big production and you're moving stuff around, I mean, those pots get heavy. Native soil is heavy. So and I think the water can stick around for a little longer, especially if you're working with like a clay soil. in your pots, which could cause root rot. So,
Right.
but then you also have like some beneficial microorganisms that are in that soil that could help your plants too. So
Yeah, I've been running into, like, I'll use the native soil, but I keep having to remind myself that like putting things in a pot is just so different from it like existing in the ground.
Absolutely.
Like temperature wise, as well as like it compresses in a way it wouldn't if it was just like part of the earth.
yeah.
Like, do you collect all your seeds locally and then, or do you?
Mostly. Well, I guess now maybe half and half. Luckily, since I worked at the Arboretum for such a long time in many different capacities, so I was an intern for AmeriCorps, and then I managed the greenhouses a couple of times
Right.
in my career. One time was for 1 year, and then I went and worked for the Park Service at Grand Canyon, and then the last time I did it, I was there for 4 or 5 years, I can't remember. And then I also worked a lot with Sheila Murray in research. So we were collecting a lot of seeds and with our permit, and we knew exactly where all of our plants came from. So when I went and bought mother plants to take home to my own garden, I knew where those seeds came from. So I'm able to wild harvest from my garden and know that those seeds are local, they have good local provenance,
Nice.
which is really cool. But you know, that's also very limiting. Though I do feel like my yard looks like a little bit like a botanical garden. It's more like a collection because
Right.
I'm such a plant nerd.
Right, yeah. I feel like I run into that a lot with people who really like plants. They're like, oh, come look at this
Yeah.
over
Yeah.
here, you know?
I have this one really cool plant that nobody else has.
Right, yeah.
But that only gets me so far since I'm doing production. I want to have more things that are available to people. So I do buy seed, but I buy them from places like Plants of the Southwest,
Right.
All Plains.
Okay.
And All Plains is great because Seeds of the Southwest is in Santa Fe.
Uh-huh.
So kind of similar climate.
Right.
And I believe that they do seed increase fields out there. I think that's how they get their seeds. And then All Plains, he wild collects his seeds, and he's got UTMs and location associated with every species.
Oh, wow. That's
So that makes it really cool. So you could either look for things, there are things that he's collected around here, but you could look for seeds that came from a similar environment to what we have in Flagstaff, and then that's what I try to buy.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I want to set people up for success because I want people to grow more natives.
Yeah, and I don't think people realize like how much of a difference like seed collected at like 3,000 feet, like what the plant is going to be like versus plants that you're collecting seed with genotypes that are for like 7,000 feet.
Yeah.
Like it's very different.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, and I always try to get people, I recommend matching the native plant, thinking about the native plant that you want, thinking about where it grows, do a little bit of research and try to match that as much as you can using microclimates in your own garden. So,
Right.
but I am also known for pushing the boundaries too. I mean, there's Hymenopsis hupesii that I really, really love, and it grows up on the peaks.
Mhm.
And I'm in Sunnyside, or not Sunnyside, sorry, up in Shadow Mountain.
Mhm.
It's hot up there, right next to Mount Eldon, and this plant grows up in moist areas, up probably 1,000 feet higher than where we are, but still living struggles.
Yeah.
But
Well, it's
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's definitely fun to experiment and see like what you can grow here.
mhm.
And yeah, I agree. Like especially with the people that I have that are coming from, you know, other parts of the country that have just moved here. It's like we'll start out with something that I know will do really well in your yard, and then like after that, maybe like start planting things that are just like for fun to experiment.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I try to do kind of like a 90-10 or like a 80-20, where it's like you know most of the things that you're planting are things you know will do well, and then you have like the fun stuff that
Yes.
you can just like stick in and like see what will do.
And I am happy to plug our Grow Flagstaff Seed Library located at 2304 North 4th Street in Sunnyside. It is free to the public. It's a service that our master gardeners provide to the community, and we do have a lot of locally collected wildflower seeds that you can come and pick out. The idea behind a seed library, for people who may not know, is that it acts like a library where you're checking out books, but this time you're checking out plants seeds, you're checking out seeds, and then planting them, growing them. The idea is that you collect some seed off of your plants and then bring them back to the seed library. So over and over again, these seeds are being more adapted to our local climate.
Very cool.
That's the dream. It's okay if you aren't successful and you don't bring your seeds back to us. We won't hunt you down, but
There's not a fee attached.
there's not a fee attached. But yeah, it's free. All we ask is that you just register and record what you checked out from the library, and then try to return some seeds. But if not, it's no big deal. Oh, and there's a 5-packet limit.
Okay, that makes sense. You don't want
Yeah.
somebody getting like too wild and using all the seeds.
Yeah, because people do get excited.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, free seeds.
Mhm.
I understand.
Yeah, so we have a lot of really great locally sourced wildflower seeds, especially from Cindy Murray, who writes a lot. She contributes a lot to the gardening, etc. Article in the Arizona Daily Sun
Okay, yeah, I
on
think I've seen
Saturdays.
that in the
Yeah,
email.
and she's out in Donny Park, and she has a lot of wildflowers. So she brings in a ton of seed, and then we also have a lot of vegetable seeds too.